What's up, and welcome to the first episode of the David Carson Show. I've been away for a few weeks and was not intended. It was a lot harder to get this live show set up than I was expecting, and I got a lot of new equipment. I was hoping to have a new mic by the first episode, but didn't really work out. But yeah, here we are. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today, but to start, let me tell you what my plans are for the show. I want to do this every day at noon from noon to 2 p.m. Central or 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern time. Got a bit of a late start today. I went and I redid my whole system last night. I realized I could do it a bit better, so the morning was spent doing that. Every single day for the last few weeks, I've been working really hard on getting all this set up, and then there's still just more to do even today. But let's hope it's good to go. I was actually considering just, delaying one more day to get it all set up, but I already have all the stories for today, and I'm like, do I really want to waste those or be another day behind on the news? So yeah, we went for it, Episode 1 is here. So yeah, we'll be doing this live, and I'll start posting clips every day, and yeah, we can hang out in the chat. I don't know if I'll have anyone in chat today because it's episode 1. It might take a minute, but the goal is to cover about 10 stories per day, then spend about a half hour chatting and getting any of your comments in the chat throughout the stories, and we can talk about it. But what we're covering today is Donald Trump to be arrested on Thursday and his bond set for $200,000 in Fulton County. Trump has already recorded his debate night interview with Tucker Carlson. Seems like it's coming out tomorrow. Is Elon Musk really removing the block feature from X? Texas Democrat abandons the party over the border crisis. Are COVID lockdowns coming back as CDC warns of new variant? Biden reportedly selling off border wall materials. Hunter's lawyers vowed to put Joe Biden on the stand if DOJ charged Hunter. DOJ told it would be career suicide to pull trigger on the Hunter Biden charges. Beating Trump's 2024 lead will be a tough hill to climb, says Iowa pollster. And Dodger Stadium flooded while Christians claim divine wrath over the drag nuns fiasco. So a lot of stuff to get to today, so let's dive into it. We're talking about first, Trump will be surrendering on Thursday, according to his True Social, and we'll see his comments from that. But let's start with a clip.
Former President Donald Trump has agreed to a $200,000 bond and other release conditions in the Georgia election interference case. He and 18 co-defendants face a Friday deadline to surrender.
Yeah, his co-defendants are mainly his lawyers. They're not going to mention this. It's CBS clip, but 18 of his lawyers, he got legal advice from his lawyers. His lawyers gave him the advice and everything, and they think it's wrong. So now they're charging him and his lawyers for conspiracy RICO charges. Bunch of nonsense.
To Fulton County Jail, related to alleged efforts to overturn the state's 2020 election results. CBS News' Robert Costa has the latest.
The bond agreement made public after former President Trump's legal team met inside Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's offices, set strict rules for Trump's release after his expected surrender later this week, saying he shall make no direct or indirect threat against any co-defendant or witness.
Yeah, and what they mean by that is just social media, which is kind of insane what they're doing with this whole case.
Several of Trump's 18 co-defendants also agreed to bond terms today, including his former lawyer John Eastman, one of the alleged architects of the plan to overturn the 2020 election. Despite 4 indictments and 91 charges against him, Trump's lead over his GOP rivals continues to grow.
He says even with this, it's because of this that his lead is beginning to grow. Again, they don't want to talk about this on the mainstream media, but they're going after his lawyers. His lawyers gave him legal advice, and they thought they were legally in the right to do all of this stuff that they did. And then, no, we're going to try to get him on conspiracy charges. Like, what is this? What happened to attorney-client privilege and everything like that? No. It's just dead, apparently.
CBS polling shows a 46-point advantage over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, the only other candidate in double digits. Trump pointed to his dominance in the CBS poll as one reason why he's skipping the first GOP debate Wednesday in Milwaukee, a move criticized by his opponents.
He has a great opportunity to come out and do this. I think he owes it to people.
He's both afraid of me and he's afraid of defending his record.
Trump is planning an interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson that could air online at the time of the debate. Meanwhile, Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, who's cooperating with federal investigators looking at Trump's mishandling of classified documents, has, according to ABC, told special counsel Jack Smith he could not recall Trump ever declassifying documents before leaving the White House, contradicting the former president's claims.
And as Trump keeps gaining, CBS News has learned that some veteran Republicans are now encouraging Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin to enter the race. Trump's former national security advisor John Bolton tells me he recently met privately with Kemp to gauge his interest in jumping in and taking on Trump. John.
Robert Costa in
That
Washington.
just sounds hilarious. Brian Kemp's jumping in. Ron DeSantis is not beating Trump like people thought he was going to. Not even close. So now Brian Kemp's going to jump in. Yeah, the corrupt guy from Georgia who just could have done a lot to investigate election fraud in 2020, but he didn't want to even talk about it. And he's always criticizing Trump about it. Yeah, talk about a rhino. And it's funny they say, well, Trump, they didn't recall him declassifying documents. I don't know if this is true and it would have to go to court, but Trump's argument is and has been for a while, he doesn't have to. A president could just say, hey, it's declassified. I mean, like, how is Mark Meadows going to know that? Trump's just like, okay, I'm declassifying all this. He doesn't have to tell anyone. He can do it. That's what he thinks. Everyone wants to, like, talk all this trash about Trump and what he did and how it's illegal and corrupt and everything. He's not a lawyer. He just goes to his lawyers and his lawyers say, okay, this is what you can do. So, and he's like, okay, from my understanding. Yeah, I mean, you could take him to court and then we could settle all of this and figure it out for the future. But I mean, like, I don't think he was trying to do anything malicious. He just thought that's how he could declassify it. He's talked about it a lot and that's how it is. But to this arrest case, it's just more nonsense. I forget his name, Alan Dershowitz. It's like a lawyer, not the biggest Trump fan, but he was saying that this is just stupid, and they're just trying to get a conviction. It's never going to win on appeal. He was saying that it's pretty much impossible to get people on RICO charges. It has to be super ironclad, and this is just all involving his lawyers. So yeah, maybe in certain county, like Fulton County, maybe a jury would convict Trump. I don't even know how likely that is. The D.C. and the New York one seem way more ironclad. The a jury in Georgia, they might not even want to convict Trump. So he might just get off. And like I've seen some people say, some political pundits, if Trump does get vindicated and gets off, it's just gonna show, or it's gonna seem like to his Trump supporters, he didn't do anything wrong. And I think a lot of people in the country are going to think that. A lot of independents, like, all of this for what? And then he didn't even get convicted on round two with a corrupt prosecutor. He's definitely not going to get convicted if he goes to appeal. It goes and doesn't appeal. There's no way. There's no way that's going to happen. But, you know, they're just going to keep pushing for it because for whatever reason, they're so dumb. They think that if they convict Trump, that it's going to hurt him in the polls. And all this stuff shows it's the opposite. Trump's hilarious. He's like, he wanted a fourth indictment. He's like, oh, if we could get a fourth one at a rally in the last few weeks, he's like, if we could get a fourth one, we'll go climb even higher. So he wanted this. But let's look at what Trump responded with on Truth Social to this matter. He says, can you believe it? I'll be going to Atlanta, Georgia on Thursday to be arrested by the radical left district attorney Fani Willis, who is overseeing one of the greatest murder and violent crime disasters in American history. In my eyes, the trip to Atlanta is not for murder. Did he say that? Oh, no, in my case. Sorry. I'm like, in my eyes. In my case, the trip to Atlanta is not for murder, but for making a perfect phone call. She campaigned and is continuing to campaign and raise money on this witch hunt. This is in strict coordination with crooked Joe Biden's DOJ. It is all about election interference. That's what I think is crazy they're doing this to, because you could really argue in the future that it's ironclad election interference. These people are just going all in on this. Again, he's winning in the polls. They could get in trouble for this in the future for doing this. They pretty ballsy move on this whole thing. The Vowed District Attorney of Fulton County, Atlanta, Fani Willis, insisted on a $200,000 bond from me. I assume, therefore, that she thought I was a flight risk. I'd fly far away, maybe to Russia, share a gold dome suit with Vladimir, never to be seen or heard from again. Would I be able to take my very understated airplane with the gold Trump affixed for all to see? Probably not. I'd be much better off flying commercial. I'm sure nobody would recognize me. Trump is so hilarious. It's crazy. It's funny you put this. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't think this. It's just, what else is she going to do? Not post a bond? That's what they did in New York and stuff. But this chick, she really wants to go after Trump. And like you were saying, all these people campaign on going after Trump. What is his name? Alvin Bragg in New York and everything. They just, this is how they raise money. They know people don't like Trump in the area, so they're like, oh, well, I'll go get elected. I'll get some George Soros money, get some money from rich donors, some rhinos like in the JFK, what was it? No, the Lincoln Project. Yeah, so that's what they're doing, but it's not going to go anywhere. All these charges are stupid, and the media's even been saying this since indictment 1 in New York. They're like, what are they going after him for? Really, they're not going to get him at this. When you have pundits in the mainstream media admitting to it, I don't even understand where they think this is going to go, but they're going to do it anyway because, like he was saying, they campaigned on it and they're raising money from it. So yeah, but again, if they get him on election interference, like, well, if Trump wins, that's what's really funny about them doing all of this, because they're like, okay, do all this because we're in power right now. But what if Trump wins? And then he starts bringing them up on charges, or his DOJ starts bringing them up on charges for election interference. Yep. Very, very interesting. But let's move on to the next story. Trump has already recorded his debate night interview with Tucker Carlson. Yeah, so I guess him having a report on Thursday and stuff doesn't even matter because he filmed all this beforehand. But let's check out a clip.
Well, the debate stage will be missing one very notable figure Wednesday night when the Republican presidential candidates gather for their first primary debate.
Former President Donald Trump is skipping out on the event in favor of an interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. And we're hearing now from two sources familiar with that matter that the interview has actually already been recorded. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale joins us now live from Atlanta. Ali, it's good to see you this Monday. We know that the Trump-Tucker interview will reportedly be sort of counter-programming for that debate. What do we know about when this interview was actually recorded and what was discussed, and frankly, when and how it airs?
Well, look, our understanding from our sources is that this interview's already been taped and that it's likely to be the counter-programming that you mentioned to Wednesday night's debate, which will be aired on Fox News and is the first opening salvo of this Republican presidential primary. Everyone on that stage is going to use this big Fox News audience as a chance to make their first pitch to the largest group of voters that they've seen thus far. Of course, Trump won't be there, and this counter-programming really works as a troll on multiple levels here, Morgan. Of course, Tucker Carlson has no affinity for Fox News. They did not have an affable parting of ways when they actually parted ways several months ago.
Yep, Trump is trolling, and so is Tucker Carlson. It's pretty funny. And Trump doesn't even really like Fox News either at the moment. So, yep, we're going to take away ratings from Fox, and my political opponents won't get as big of an audience.
We know that Carlson, of course, is going to be likely to release these clips of an interview maybe on Twitter, which is now called X. We've seen him do these kinds of interviews before. But for Trump, he has said in the past that he doesn't see a political upside to going on this debate stage because he knows that all eyes are going to be on him and every single one of his rivals is going to want to have a moment potentially at his expense. I think what's true here, no matter what, though, is that even if Trump isn't physically on the stage, he's going to be looming over all of it because we know these moderators are likely to ask about what happened in the aftermath of Trump losing the 2020 election and, of course, all the indictments that we've seen since.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're going to be talking about. It's just going to be the Trump show, even though Trump's not there. That's why he doesn't want to go. You know, I understand the argument where some people are like, oh, he should debate. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I understand both sides of the argument. I understand why he's not going to. He's like, what's the point? They're just going to get pressed based off of me. I'm way ahead in the polls. And he's basically the incumbent. It's kind of crazy people are even running against him. So, yeah, he's just going to skip out on it and do his own thing. And he's just going to do this every single debate. No one has a chance against Trump, especially with these indictments. I thought that someone could have beat him, like Dave Smith, a libertarian. I like Dave Smith. But after they started indicting Trump in New York, I'm like, there's no way. Everyone's just going to rally behind Trump because it's ridiculous, especially the Fulton County one. Now they're prosecuting his lawyers. Who doesn't want to see him win? I mean, what a standard that would set, what a precedent that would set if he loses that case. But again, in an appeal, he's never going to lose. You know, even a biased judge will most likely side with him because it's an attorney-client privilege. And they gave him legal advice. How can you as an attorney give someone legal advice and get convicted or like indicted for this, right? And their argument was, well, they know they were lying, or they know Trump was lying or something, so that's why. I mean, the guy, what was his name, Johnny Cochran, who represented O.J. Simpson back in the day. He probably knew that O.J. Simpson committed the crimes he was accused of. But what did he, you know, that's the point of having a lawyer, right? It doesn't matter if you know the person's guilty. That's how it's always been since the foundation of the country. The lawyer's not responsible if they know you're guilty. They still fight to get you off, and this never happened before. But now with Trump, okay, no, we're going to go after Trump. We're going to go after the lawyers. We're just going to go after everything to like set an example and make sure this doesn't happen again. But it's just probably just going to backfire. It's just gaining more people behind Trump. He's just going to destroy in the polls. And yeah, and it's going to just lead to his victory. They might have had a shot of actually beating Trump if they didn't go and do this, but they couldn't help themselves. Like he was saying, they campaigned on this stuff and everything. So, yeah, this was what they're going to do. They just really want to get Trump. Yeah, it's honestly gets kind of boring, right? Because they're never even going to get him on what they're accusing him of. But they're just going to do it anyway. But it's going to be fascinating to see his polls just keep going up. And I guess if he takes a mugshot, it's all over for him. But I think they want to do the mugshot because they want to do it for their side. Look, we got Trump, you know, to go after their base. But then Trump's base is just going to love it. And a lot of independents are just going to hate this, especially with more details. If people learn more details, his poll numbers are already going up. I don't even think a lot of people even know they're indicting his lawyers. I don't even know. I think they're indicting like Kanye West publicist because he was out there saying that Trump won the election. Who so what? In 2016, the left overall said that Hillary Clinton won. You know, they're not indicting publicists or anything like that. But with Trump, no, that's what they're gonna do. Yeah, it's the Trump derangement syndrome. Orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. Let's get him at all costs. It doesn't matter if we're going to get charged in the future. Well, I think they're still confident that I don't even understand. Do they really think they're going to win when the polls keep shifting even farther for Trump when they indict him? I kind of get it just because they're hopeful and they did campaign and they raised money on it, right? But again, how hard it seems like it's backfiring, and there's probably going to even be more indictments. They're probably going to keep coming and just keep making Trump stronger. He's going to keep raising more and more money. He's going to get more and more of a base, and he's probably just going to just win in a landslide in 2024. Then the left is really going to freak out, right? People are always like, oh, J6 of 2021. Wait till 2025. The left will burn that Capitol down. It wouldn't even surprise me. I think almost if maybe there's a few actual Trump supporters on J6 that were Trump supporters? I don't think so, though. I think all of them were Antifa. Maybe there's one or two, but the vast majority of people actually committing violence and fighting with police, doing vandalism, I think they were all leftists. I've seen video of them like in the trees, but near the Capitol, they're changing into Trump supporter gear when they're not even Trump supporters. And the one guy that they did arrest that was part of Antifa, he was saying that Antifa was on the ground like crazy, that day. So, I mean, that just shows you what it is. But imagine if you have all the people, the same amount of people, or even half of the people that were there on January 6th of 2021, and they're all Antifa, 100%. That's going to be wild. What was it in 2020 when they burned down a guard post by the White House, right? So, yep, you can already see kind of what's happening. It happened before. And look at all the stuff with the state capitals. They go in there and they just are unruly. They do a bunch of crazy stuff. So it's just like, and it's funny because then those same exact people are like J6, insurrection. And then they go do the same thing at the state capitals. Right? So it's, I don't even like, wait, what? So yeah, 2024 is going to be wild, and they're just pushing this to happen. I think it's kind of invert, and I think they'd much rather Trump lose, but what they're doing, yeah, it's interesting. And the left in general are like this. People on Twitter are like, oh, get him. They don't realize his polls are rising, and the crimes they're accusing him of are nonsense, and he's never actually going to get convicted of them. So he's just going to end up winning. And I guess they don't even realize that. It's very interesting. But let's move on to the next story. Is Elon Musk really removing the block feature from X? Let's take a look at a clip.
So now you have blocking feature to be removed from former Twitter platform X, says Musk. Social media company X, formerly known as Twitter, will remove the protective feature that lets users block accounts. Elon Musk has said in another controversial move for the company he bought last year. Now, it's my opinion that this was about not letting people actually block advertisers. Do I actually care if Elon were to hypothetically remove the entire block function? No, I don't. Because let me tell you about this thing called alt accounts or burner accounts. Everyone has them. Large accounts that are constantly causing you strife will just take screenshots of your tweets, and you'll still get their huge army of viewers dunking on you and annoying you and spamming you, things of that nature. Now, there are some people who raise valid points, like Tim Pool talked about, how people are posting this private information in the replies and things of that nature. I 100% empathize with that as someone who has had to deal with multiple swattings over the years, just like him. And but really, removing the block feature doesn't do that. If somebody's posting some information you don't want out there, you block them. They're just going to create another account. You can block that account. They'll create another one and another one and another one. There's nothing to stop that. So I think effectively the block feature doesn't actually do a lot, but it did ruffle a lot of feathers. Mudahar bringing up a very good valid point saying, bro, can you block the bots like you said you were going to do? This is after Elon kind of went on this weird kind of, I don't know. It was this weird like doubling down where he said, pretty fun blocking people who complain that blocking is going away. How does that medicine taste?
How does that even...
I mean, I don't
even say that it's medicine because now they're blocked, and now I just don't even understand what he's trying to do. The medicine because, oh, well, you don't want anyone blocked, but now I blocked you. Ha, 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 ha. I like Elon for the most part, but some things he does like this, it's just stupid. He's just going out of control, just trolling for what? If people want the block feature, let them have the block feature. Yeah, I don't get it. And he's just blocking people just because they don't want the block feature. He's not blocking them for any legitimate reason in this case.
No. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really care or think that blocking is an effective way to get people to leave you alone. You can see that I find it a little bit ironic that many of the people who are all for free speech are mad that we won't be able to block other people from seeing our speech. Shu replies, every day the dumbest people on earth expose themselves for not understanding what free speech is. If I lock the door of my house, that does not intrude on your freedom. You have the freedom to talk. I have the freedom not to listen.
Yeah, what are they talking
And I think, Shu also has a pretty iconic block list. There are a lot of people who are well known for their block list. Cernovich, Steve Shives, more, all legendary block lists. But, you know, then you have the celebrities. I'm kind of torn because you have the celebrities melting down. You have Dan Slott saying, people are like, why is your Twitter going to be like when you don't have blocks anymore? It won't be anything. I'll close the account. I'm over on Threads, Blue Sky, IG, and Facebook. I've got more than enough social media to deal with it. He's not going anywhere.
On there.
He's not going anywhere. Just like that guy who looks like who's got a face that looks like a dropped pie. What's his name? He played Hellboy and literally nothing else I can think of.
I believe he's
quit
talking
Twitter about a dozen
Rob
times.
Perlman.
Tim Pool saying, people have posted my address, photos of my house. I've been swatted 15 times. Blocking them makes many of the trolls stop seeing and being able to interact with my posts. Again, blocking doesn't stop that. I disagree with Tim there.
Well, what Tim was saying, I don't know if Jeremy went and watched his comments on IRL, but Tim made a good point. If someone's swatting you and just obsessed with you and stuff, step one is to try to get them not to see you. You know, is it 100% effective? Absolutely not. Not even close, but it's step one because it's out of sight, out of mind. They'll move on to someone else that they can't see. That's his point. Do I fully agree with it? I don't know. But, you know, that's the point he's making.
Understand 1,000% why Tim feels that way, but blocking doesn't really do anything about that. But then you see here, thank you. If Elon Musk removes the ability to block concerted harassment by trolls or organized political entities, how will X be any different than Jack Dorsey's horrid Twitter? To which Elon replies, then delete your account.
Jeez,
I don't really understand because
like his account got hacked. Like, you buy Twitter and all this, there's delete your account. He wants to be this app for everything and all this, and not what he's just going kind of nuts. He said he was going to go all in for free speech, and then now is lawful but awful. That's what his CEO is saying now. Like, oh, we'll remove you if you're awful. And who gets to determine if you're awful? She gets to? Twitter team? Elon Musk? Hey, they don't like our we're getting rid of the block feature. No, they're awful. Just delete your account. It's like, what are you? It's just not a good way to do business.
This goes against over the weekend, it went against so many things that Elon had said, as was pointed out by Leftism for You.
Doesn't even seem like it's
negative
Elon
feedback received on this platform is great for reducing ego-based errors, which is people are talking about that. Negative feedback is great. Negative feedback is a tool for keeping ego under control. Frankly, I love negative feedback. I think, again, also what happened to this going forward, there'll be a vote on any major policy changes. My apologies, won't happen again, but it has.
It's happened over and over again.
Let stalkers, trolls spam.
That quote he just gave from Elon was from December, and now he got the CEO and everything that no one likes, and now he's doing this. He's doing a bunch of stuff that people don't like. There's no vote. Which, I mean, he owns the company, to be fair, but I'm just saying, like, why does he say this stuff and then just he goes back on it less than a year later?
And spicy prawn bots flood your mentions or leave. Is the new CEO coming up with this stupid stuff, or are you?
That's a good question.
Is it about more eyes on ads, which is what I believe it is? Don't get overconfident you're going to get MySpace.
Yep.
I think that, for me...
I don't think he's going to get MySpace for something like this. And most people that use X aren't even probably seeing that he's removing the block feature and stuff. It's just crazy that you would. It's like he doesn't do this with his other companies, just Twitter. I just think it's so weird. He's not like, oh, you don't like that our quality control is not great at Tesla, then don't buy a Tesla. Does he say stuff like that? Right? It's just like, that's so interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. And the other, in Tesla and Boring and SpaceX, everything, he seems like he's really nice to people and his customers and wants to work with people. But Twitter, it's like the complete opposite. It's like the troll ground. So he's like, hey, I'm just going to troll like crazy on here because it's the troll ground. But didn't he want to buy that maybe to get rid of that? Maybe not. I don't know. Interesting.
It was about getting more eyes on ads. The only thing I really block, other than people who are bad faith actors in my replies, are ads. So I think very strong, and I think a lot of people are the same way. They block ads.
I don't even pay
so
attention
he wants to do that. But then you see he blocked Cat Turd, and then he was still dunking on him in the replies after blocking him. Yeah. It's very weird behavior, in my opinion. But of course, everyone having a meltdown, and it was all for naught, as expected. This via X News Daily, X Daily. Elon has given more details about removing the block feature. He's proposing a stronger mute, which would consistently hide all posts.
Elon
he
is
does
just
not
such a troll.
appear to be endorsing the idea that this strong mute would prevent interacting replies, quotes, aside from DMs. I've had several weirdos who have been blocked on my Twitter for 10 years, it feels like, and they still reply to my every thread. It's like, think about what they have to do. They have to like find someone that replied to me, then reply to them. That's their whole life. I can't imagine a more pathetic existence. But Elon writes, yes, the obvious move is to strengthen the mute function. This is today. By making anything posted by the muted accounts invisible to you. Right now, both mute and block are partially broken. It should also be made easy to continue to follow an account while blocking their ability to DM you. Mute needs to mute properly, including all mentions. Block will only apply to DMs. Jack gets it. Surprisingly, few others do. I think the idea is that, you know, if you want to be able to follow an account, that's fine. But it's interesting. Part of the reason, really the only reason that I ever really care about blocking people is if they're always like annoying my viewers and like I have to see their stupid endless arguments going on forever and ever and ever and ever in my mentions. This, I'm not sure.
Gets you some engagement though, bro.
This would not protect my viewers from bots and spammers and, you know, people posting their OF stuff and all that kind of stuff. It will still appear in my replies, which I don't like.
Yeah, it's weird.
If somebody's constantly shilling their product or something like that in my reply.
It's funny Elon said that mute and block are both partially broken, so I'm going to tweak mute a little bit and just get rid of all of the functions of block except for DMs. Very interesting. Maybe he wants to do something else eventually. I don't know. It's so weird.
Replies, I don't care for that. You see, personally, I have 5,000 accounts blocked, mostly from over 5 years ago. I wish I could unblock them all with one click. With that said, there are a few accounts which I do want to prohibit replying to my posts. These are people who post photos of my home, address, kids' names, etc.
Yeah, but now you're
now
not
if
even
you
allowed
just
to do
mute
that.
them,
It's weird.
That doesn't necessarily
They can still respond to you, right?
keep them from posting your private information.
Yeah.
He's also made a series, of course, here's Reaper saying he's made a series of in poor taste this morning and mock and criticize who wish those to keep the feature in an attempt to humiliate and dismiss valid concerns. It's deplorable behavior for him. Past bot defenses are failing. Only subscription works at scale. So essentially he's saying, unless you pay Twitter $8 a month, then you can't, you're not going to be able to protect your account from getting spammed into oblivion. I 100% disagree with that. I don't have this problem in a lot of other format or platforms. You know, I think now they're talking about pushing ID verification, which I 100% don't agree with. We're talking about, you know, ID, you know, so I have to have an ID to use social media, and then it creates this crazy security issue where Twitter has to, you know, has my driver's license and stuff.
Elon's like went completely back on the whole free speech thing. Now he wants the ID to even use the platform. Is that sounds really strange? And I mean, I said earlier, I don't know if they'd get MySpace, but I mean, you gotta maybe, you know, you start going and pushing way too hard, it's just gonna happen, right? Most likely. I mean, Twitter's not even that innovative. I mean, it's been the same since like 2008. They're starting to add video and more interesting stuff, but you probably just get that anywhere else. It's kind of disappointing because I thought when Elon bought Twitter, it's just like I was always hoping in the last few years for a really good alternative to pop up. And then Elon bought Twitter, and I was like, okay, there doesn't even need to be one. One of the mainstream people are doing it, but now he's just going like more ham than Facebook or Instagram. I know they're both owned by Meta, but you don't need ID verification and stuff for those. Maybe if you want to get monetized, but yeah, that's it. And I don't even think you need an ID for that. I think you just have to like connect a Stripe account or whatever.
Like, I'm not going to give Twitter my driver's license. That's insanity. So I don't know. He appears to be backing off of his original decision, but I'm not sure I love this solution that he's offering now either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what his thought was, why he went in on people wanting to get removed that are mad that he's removing the block feature. Elon, like in this situation, it seems like a douche. It's okay. You don't think people need it? You don't get it. You don't have to mock and belittle them. Who cares? I think the block feature is good. You know, if I started my own social media last year, it didn't really take off or anything, so I was paying hundreds of dollars a month for it. So I still have the domain votefeed.com, but the site's not open anymore. And then the platform I was using just got so bogged down and slow as more content got on it. So I decided just to close it down for now until I could, get on a better platform. But I always thought that was that's how you can have free speech, right? Is because as most as you can without treading like in unlawful territory, right? For stuff that's illegal, you can't allow that. But for anything that's legal, you can just block people. But now Elon's just like, no, I don't think you should. But yeah, it's really interesting. It sounds like they're going to incorporate most of this stuff. If they do remove the block feature, they're going to incorporate a lot of the stuff with mute. So it's interesting. Yeah, I guess we'll just see what happens with that. I would probably just rather just them keep the block button. Elon's making some really interesting changes because, like, why is that important? If you have the blocker, you can have the block plus the mute. Why is he even worrying about this? Right? He could be worried about other stuff. But yeah, let's move on to the next story. The Texas Democrat abandons the party over the border crisis. Let's play a clip.
All right, here's some breaking news. A Democrat county official in Texas is switching parties, citing the unprecedented crisis at the southern border as the major reason why. Her county is located in southern Texas and next to the Gulf of Mexico. It's right down there, Clayburgh County.
All right, according to the Border Patrol, in July alone, there were over 183,000 migrant encounters at the southern border, a steep increase from the 144,000 reported in June.
And joining us now is the Clayburgh County Attorney, Kira Talib Sanchez. Good morning to you, Kira.
Good morning.
Good morning. So you're switching. You have been a Texas Democratic county official. You've announced you're now switching to the GOP. Tell us more about why.
Well, as you know, my parents came to the United States from Mexico, and they raised me with conservative values. And in recent years, I feel like my former party has moved further left, and it's no longer aligned with my values. And growing up in this community as a Hispanic, we were told, Hispanics are Democrats, and that is not really the case. I feel like a lot of Hispanic Americans are Republican and they don't even know it.
What was your breaking point in particular? The lack of communication with the administration, the lack of caring? After all, the president did come down watch a dog get spot drugs in a police car, but that wasn't enough?
Well, I mean, to be honest, as my job as county attorney has no politics in it. My job is just to follow the law and prosecute. But, in my position, I do run the Specialized Crimes and Narcotics Task Force, and our job is to proactively target criminals engaged in trafficking, weapons, drugs, persons, and currency, and we see it every day. Operation Lone Star that we're also involved with, we help Border Patrol and other counties with all the human smuggling that's going on. And, Clayburgh County has a checkpoint, it's in Sarita, and we have a lot of foot traffic that comes around that checkpoint, right. And it's become a big problem.
Sure. So, Kira, to recap, would you say that during the Trump years, where he really cracked down on the southern border, where it wasn't quite the open door that it is now, Trump years were less chaotic in your county? If that policy had continued to today, would you be switching parties?
I probably still would. I've been thinking about it for several years. I was nervous to be called a traitor. You're Hispanic. Why are you Republican? But I feel very comfortable in switching. I feel like I'm at home, and this is where I belong.
Who called you a traitor?
Well, I'm just saying, I've already had comments, they've been basically saying, oh, how can you do that? You're Hispanic. You should be a Democrat.
Huh. Well, maybe you speaking out will get the attention of other Democrats, and they'll be switching as well.
Yes, and Clayburgh County is the southernmost Republican county in Texas.
It's funny how like the people on the left always project. They're like, oh, you're racist, you're bigots, you stereotype. And then it just always seems like on the left, they're like, oh, you're Hispanic. You got to do this. You're this or this. And that means you have to do this. There's no individualism at all. Just pure projection.
Texas right now. And we have a great team. And our goal is to keep our community safe.
Okay. You have a border wall?
Excuse me?
Do you have a border wall?
No.
Unbelievable. And we paid for it. And you're right there.
Yep.
All right, thanks so much.
The county voted for George Bush in 2000 and 2004 and narrowly voted for Trump in 2020. All right, Kara, thank you so much for joining us.
Good luck.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
You bet.
Wow. Very interesting. I think this is just going to keep happening more and more, especially with people who are Hispanic. A lot of these people that come here, they came here for the American dream. The people that came here legally, they came here for the American dream, and now it's dead. And they're like, oh, no, let's just go to socialism. Like, I don't want to go to socialism. Well, that's Democrat Party now, so, But then when you want to go away from it because you've never been a fan of socialism and all these crazy leftist policies and wokeness and everything, then they're like, oh, what? You're Hispanic. Why would you want to leave? It's like, shouldn't you have known people were going to leave that came here for the American dream? It's really funny because a lot of these people on the left, like the whole Democratic Party now, it just seems like they just want socialism. They hate America. They don't want anything to do with America. They always say it's destroying Trump is destroying the democracy. Well, number one, we're a republic. And even if we were a democracy, wouldn't have the majority of people ever get what they want. Right? Most people want a balanced budget. Most people want lower taxes. People want lower regulations. People just want the government to get out of the way. That's the majority of people, right? But no, the left does the complete opposite. And then again, they freak out and they're like, oh, why are you leaving the party? There's just people are going to leave more and more and more. I have a friend. He said recently, he's like, I'm like a center. I'm on the center right. He's like the Democratic Party abandoned me. I didn't abandon them. He's like, he's 32, I believe. And yeah, that's what happens now. The left is went so far to the left, like this Kira woman, you can't even, what are you going to do? It's like they maybe under Obama would have been on the left, and he has socialist policies. But the left now is super left. They like want to kill America. They want to destroy America. They want to be like Venezuela. It's like, oh, the socialism's never been done right. Because it can't be done right. Do you ever think of that? Very interesting. But that's it for this one. Let's move on to the next story. Are COVID lockdowns coming back as CDC warns of new variant? Let's take a look at a clip.
Perhaps I spoke too soon last night when I discussed the potential return of COVID mandates and lockdowns, because rapidly these mandates are being implemented, old policies are being reinstated, and it is happening right now. Take a look at this story from yesterday. Lionsgate brings back mask mandates in office. As a new variant, EG5, becomes dominant, the studio is asking some of its employees to mask up and self-test. There's a lot of stories to break down. We've got universities. We've got Biden calling for people to get to get vaccinated. We've got Forbes giving advice on when you should get your new and latest booster because of these dangerous new variants. We've got a report that a man from Japan has brought the new dangerous BA variant into this country.
Oh, no.
More and more, we are seeing these stories emerge. But I want to show you one thing before we get into all this news so you can see it happening.
Who has
Just give old COVID mandates a good old Google search. And as I did this morning, because I am pulling up research on the latest reports, we can see that the whitehouse.gov National COVID-19 Preparedness Plan was updated 33 minutes before I
mean, I always thought the lockdowns were dumb, since the beginning. But now it's so weird because almost everyone has antibodies. Almost everyone's had COVID, right? So the people that have had COVID really are rude, right? Because that's such a small part of the population now, and they just want everyone to lock down just because they haven't had it yet. I don't even know. I think everyone's probably just had it and they don't know it.
Started recording this video. I don't know what that means, right? For all we know, there was a typo on the page. They changed a sentence. This national COVID preparedness plan has been up, I think, since like 2021, but it has been updated. So we've got a lot going on. We've got Biden urging Americans to get their new COVID-19 boosters. Rutgers is enforcing a vaccine mandate. Atlanta College is reinstating its COVID-19 mask mandate as students return. Rutgers is saying they're going to disenroll people if they don't get their, I think, triple vaxxed.
Wow.
It looks like COVID lockdowns
school anyway?
are back on the menu. Oh, boy. Just in time for a major election cycle. This is what I find fascinating. There's to break this down. One thing that I was saying about Joe Biden's inability to win in 2024. Let's start here. Why this may be happening. For one, there's a lot of people who are paranoid about COVID. A lot of older people, definitely people in big cities where the population is particularly dense. They're very paranoid. That could be a strong reason. In fact, it's probably one of the only reasons they actually get these lockdowns. There may be political.
Here in Austin, people cared for like a month, maybe two, few months, maybe. After like the first year, it was, I remember, I mean, this was months after. This was in December. I remember I went out on Christmas Eve and COVID all kicked off in March. So like 7 months after, I didn't see anyone with masks on. People were all at bars having fun. And this was like 2 years before any of the rest of the country reopened.
Reasons behind locking things down. But the only way you get people to comply is if they are scared of COVID. But I said this. I don't think Joe Biden can win. At least right now. Joe Biden is in the polls rivaling Trump. At this time in the election cycle, in the last election cycle, Biden was ahead of Trump. Trump was way down. And the margin for Trump's loss in 2020 was lower than his victory in 2016. Only 42,000 votes across 3 states. That's why this whole election thing erupted, because Trump was basically like, that's it? 42,000? Right. If Trump maintains his 75 million vote count, even 74, I don't see Joe Biden winning because they don't have COVID lockdowns. And Joe Biden has led this country rather poorly. The economy ain't doing too well. I wouldn't, look, there's a lot of arguments about whether it's good or bad. I think it's chaotic is the easiest way to explain it. Certainly, sometimes stocks are up. We've got high interest rates. There's fears of inflation. Inflation's cooled down a little bit. It goes back and forth. But all I got to do is look at gas prices. And gas prices, at least where I'm at, are over $4. Well, they're floating around $4. And that's a bad sign for whoever's in office. Yeah. So here's what I want to say about politics. And then I'll read you through all this COVID lockdown stuff. With the lockdowns, they were able to do universal mail-in voting. They were able to keep people away from sports and movies. People were locked in their homes, bored out of their minds, panicked. And the TV kept screaming, Donald Trump did this. He was the problem. You see, when Donald Trump was giving his daily COVID briefings, his approval rating started to go up because people were starting to feel better. So what happened? Oh, boy. The networks pulled his COVID briefings off the air, calling him a liar. Mm-hmm. That's right. Political. You see, I think without the lockdowns, they got nothing. Who's going to vote for Joe Biden? Now, I will tell all these people who are like, there's no way Joe Biden got these votes and won. Dude, you're right. Joe Biden didn't get 81 million votes. Anti-Trump got 81 million votes because the TV blamed Trump. They knock on doors. They say, fill this out. They go to nursing homes, ballot harvesting, ballot chasing. Right. That's how they pulled it off. It doesn't matter in the big cities so much. It matters in the swing states. So now they're bringing these lockdowns back, it would seem. And the reason I want to cover this right now is as we are at the front door to the potential return of lockdowns.
If they wanted to do lockdowns again, and you got to get a really scary virus. COVID was so overblown the entire time, and everybody knows it now. So now the variants now are less lethal and everything. So people just aren't going to put up with it. Even if you got something really scary and really lethal, man, after the 2 years of being locked down, it was just 2 years ago. I don't think anyone's going to put up with it. Some people will, I'm sure, but the majority of Americans, I do not think so.
Vaccine mandates and mask mandates. It's best you know about it ASAP. Mm-hmm. Yep, lest you be ambushed by it, but it is here. Now, I will also add the double-edged sword nature of the lockdowns. They blamed Donald Trump the first time, and that got a lot of people really angry, and they voted against Donald Trump. They said these lockdowns are his fault. Donald Trump was the one who came out and said 15 days to slow the spread. And then they were complaining about his leadership, and the governors were like, oh, you know, if you Trump this, Trump that. They blame him for everything. They're not going to be able to do it this time. In fact, it's going to be Joe Biden who screws this one up.
Yep,
this
going to be the
could
one in
create a
office.
massive negative
that's interesting, right?
impact.
They want to do the lockdowns, and then if it just backfires on Biden because of it. But then they'll just do the mail-in voting and everything. That's probably their plan. They don't want people to go vote in person. They want to just everyone to do the mail-in, so the same thing will happen over again. That's their plan. At 3 a.m, a bunch of votes are here all of a sudden. You know, they're all mail-in, and 99.9% of them are all for Biden. They want to do that again. But yeah, it could. If they did do lockdowns again, it could backfire. But again, I don't think anyone's going to put up with it, especially because it's just COVID again. People are just over COVID, right? People aren't even scared of it anymore. The thing is most people have gotten it the last 2 years since the 15 days to slow the spread and everyone was scared and everything. People got it and they're like, yeah, like me, I got it once or twice and potentially twice. And I'm like, okay, it sucked. You know, it wasn't fun. I hate being sick in general. It's awful. But is it worth all the lockdowns and all the money to the economy and just all of these businesses closing and everything? Not even close.
On Biden's campaign, people are going to say it was under the Democrat leadership we ended up with all of these problems and another lockdown, more mandates. I don't want to live that way. But there's another potentiality. While that may lead to a Donald Trump victory, because we don't think Joe Biden can actually win. Most people don't think he can win. Look, right now the polls have it at a coin toss, but they're not taking into consideration that 12th grade males, voting age males now entering the voting block are skewing conservative. They're going to vote for Trump. Yep. Liberal young people, really hard to get them to vote liberal. They really don't care. It's all, social media influencer stuff. Young conservative dudes, they're going to go vote. They want to be part of this.
Yeah.
Here's an alternative. This could spike Joe Biden massively and create a path for Gavin Newsom to come in and say, Joe, you let us down. We were done with COVID and under your...
Funny, every time someone brings up Newsom, people countrywide are going to hate Newsom. So he might be right. Tim might be right on this. They might be trying to do that. But I always think that every time that comes up, people are going to like Biden more than Newsom. Look at all the stuff Newsom did in California during the lockdowns and everything. He's a giant hypocrite. He lies all the time about stats and stuff. He does it all the time. He compares Texas and Florida to California, and he just brings up all these false stats and lies about stuff, and people are just going to see right through it. And Biden, at least, was the vice president under Obama, who is a really popular president, at least the first few years. So that's why Biden would win. But Newsom, it's like, ugh. They're going to sour on him. He's kind of like a Ron DeSantis, right? It's like, boring.
Leadership, it is time. This bad, the COVID came back, and I'm going to come in and fix it all. Don't be surprised if in 2028 there's another, oh no, COVID's back. 2032, oh no, COVID's back. It's just going to keep happening, isn't it? Lionsgate brings back mask mandates in the office. Hollywood Reporter says, is it starting again? Oh boy. A Hollywood studio has instituted a mask mandate for its employees in light of the current COVID wave. Really? Lionsgate sent an email to staff asking them to mask up on certain floors of its Santa Monica office after several employees caught the virus. The studio is also asking employees to conduct self-screening before coming into office. While this is obviously just one office of one studio, the move comes amid some national buzz about whether mask mandates might be returning as variant EG5 has become dominant in the United States. Oh, heavens me! You also have this story from Inside Paper. Traveler from Japan tests positive for the new COVID variant BA286, Virginia, the second case of the new variant in the United States. Here we go. Hollywood Reporter goes on to say,
they already played
the variety has caused an apparent boost in cases. Yet experts also said this Omicron descendant variant, which has been spreading domestically since April, has thus far shown to be no more of a cause for concern than previous variants, according to reporting by the New York Times. The new variety isn't expected to cause a major wave akin to the first Omicron outbreak. Last May, the film industry relaxed its COVID protocols to require to no longer require masks in the workplace. Deadline was first to report the news. Here you go. From Forbes.com, new COVID boosters expected this fall. Why some doctors suggest holding off on getting your booster until then. Oh, really?
It's been
What does
years
this
and
have
they
to say?
still can't give
New
vaccines
COVID
out
boosters,
quicker.
pending approval, will only target the coronavirus's Eris strain and other XBB
And they're
subvariants,
probably unsafe.
which make up most cases in the U.S., causing some experts to encourage patients to wait for the new shots. Well, there you go. The Biden administration, as of 2 days ago, will be urging Americans to get new COVID-19 boosters. I can only say this as it pertains to vaccines and whatnot. You've had a couple years to find a good doctor. I know it's not easy, but listen, man, you got to get medical advice from someone who understands this, and doctors who understand this are out there. I do not accept this idea that every doctor is part of some secret, cabal, or, that's probably unfair, that every doctor is blindly marching in lockstep. There are bad doctors. There are good doctors, and you've got to do the work to find the good doctors. The good doctors. It's not going to be easy. We have this from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Atlanta College reinstates COVID-19 mask mandate as students return to city. Oh boy, here we go. A week after classes began, Morris Brown College is once again requiring students and employees to wear face masks on campus. The small private Atlanta college announced the mask mandate Sunday in a letter to faculty, staff, and students, saying the requirements and other COVID-19 safety protocols will be in place for 2 weeks. The college cited reports of positive cases among students in the Atlanta University Center as the reason for the decision.
Reminds me of that 15
Morris
days
Brown
to slow
President
the spread,
Kevin James.
doesn't it? Why 2 weeks? If it's going to continue, it's just going to be way longer than that.
Told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in an email Monday that the college has received no reports of cases on its own campus yet. He described the steps as precautionary measures. Let's read that one more time. Morris Brown President told AJC they have received no reports of COVID, but they're taking precautionary measures. You could take precautionary measures anytime for any reason. Why now? I just think it's a wonderful coincidence that a presidential election cycle is now kicking off. Ad spending has begun. Woo. Now, we here in the media industry are celebrating with party poppers and fireworks in politics season because, oh boy, the ad spend from all of these political parties is just absolutely massive.
Yeah.
But understand this. As these ad spends start to increase, you will see the politicking increase alongside it.
Yes.
The Atlanta University Center consists of several historically black colleges and universities on the city's west side. Morehouse and Spelman colleges and Clark Atlanta University began classes Wednesday. Morehouse's website states that the current alert level within the Atlanta University Center consortium is green, the lowest of a 4-tiered alert system. The green designation means the prevalence of the virus is minimal. What are they going to do? Are they going to claim that Donald Trump caused this ongoing, lingering problem? And they say, if Donald Trump took care of this properly, we wouldn't have a resurgence. We the Biden administration did everything right, and then, it starts coming back. It was Trump's fault.
They probably will.
I don't know how they navigate this one, to be completely honest.
I don't either.
We got Brown Institute says Rutgers set to disenroll students on August 15th if not compliant with COVID vaccine mandates. On March 25th, 2021,
mandates.
Rutgers University became the first university in the nation to announce it would require students to take COVID vaccines for the fall 2021 enrollment, retracting its January 8th, 2020 announcement that with our stance of human liberties and our history of protecting that, the vaccine is not mandatory. What happened within a few short months that made Rutgers ultimately decide to heck with students' civil liberties? Rutgers claimed, and still does to this day, that it has commitment to health and safety for all members. As of today, Rutgers remains one of less than 100 universities out of 2,697 four-year colleges to refuse to let go of vaccine mandates. Now, I don't know.
Don't go to this school.
I don't know exactly if this means anything. Rutgers apparently has maintained this. There are many places that have never dropped their COVID policies.
Well, they're bringing it
Maine
back up, though.
being one of them. This is what I talked about yesterday. I went up to Portland, Maine for the weekend, and I learned while no one is following the policies, the mask policies have never been lifted.
Insanity.
That was crazy to me. I shouldn't say mask policy. I was told that Maine never dropped its COVID lockdown policies. I guess people
How?
just slowly stopped listening to them. That's a good sign.
Yeah, they're not
That's a
going to
good sign.
listen
Hear me out.
again then, right?
This means that there's no re-implementing the policies. Now, they might come out and say it's time to start reinforcing this and try. But if they're already in effect and culturally no one
COVID's
cares,
just turned into a joke.
what are they going to do? Make another of the same law in the same order? They may have health officials go out and start issuing fines, and then restaurants are going to get angry. But it may not stand. Because right now, what may occur depends on the judges. If they come out and say in Maine, okay, look, I know we've never gotten rid of the mask policy, but we stopped enforcing it. Now we're going to. A judge may argue you can't do that. You can't drop enforcement and then just start singling out individuals.
Probably depends on
We'll
the
see.
judge.
I'd assume many of these judges are going to be happy with all of the insanity.
Yeah,
So it
I
may
would
just
agree.
be that it all comes back. We'll see what happens. I honestly don't know, but it really does look like we are gearing up for some serious lockdowns. Warroom.org. Natalie Winters writes, Biden has already begun buying COVID-19 equipment, hiring pandemic safety protocol enforcers.
Here we go.
Now, this is what the War Room writes. Let's read what they have to say. And again, I want to see some evidence. What do you got, War Room? What's your evidence?
Yeah, War Room.
Natalie Winters
Sure,
writes, the federal
evidence.
government has started purchasing COVID-19 equipment and hiring advisors on safety protocols amid speculation the Biden White House will reinstate pandemic-era lockdowns and mandates. The unearthed government contracts from entities including the DoD show millions in taxpayer funds being used to purchase COVID-19 equipment, such as test kits. Some of the contracts, which are traceable via the federal government's spending database, are even scheduled to begin in
Big
future
Pharma
months,
must be so
such
happy
as
about
October
this.
and December.
More money.
The DoD, for example, gave Hologic Sales and Services a $1.5 million contract beginning on October 1st. What is this? USspending.gov. We have a document here. Set to conclude in May of 2024. The federal database reveals Hologic COVID testing services in support of the Department of Pathology at Madigan Army Medical Center in Tacoma, Washington. I'm going to pause right here and be skeptical. First, understand. War Room has a 0 NewsGuard score. We all trust NewsGuard, don't we? Here's what I would say to this. Take it all with a grain of salt. I think that's absolutely fair. The framing here, and I think Natalie Winters is coming tonight. We can talk about this on IRL.
Jesus is going to be
The narrative here, the suggestion is that COVID lockdown may be coming because of this contract. Well, look, if this contract ends in May, they're going to do it just through the primaries, and it's COVID testing, 1.5 million. It's not a whole lot of money. They say the Department of Veteran Affairs also inked a $2 million contract with Abbott Molecular beginning on September 22nd, set to conclude September of 2024. Now, that's more interesting. It will provide testing services for viruses, including COVID-19. Here's what I can say about this. Let's pull this up. USspending.gov shows this is real. War Room is not wrong. This award amount did happen. Hologic COVID testing services in support of the Department of Pathology at Madigan Army Medical Center. But we don't know exactly what that means. It could be specifically just this one Army Medical Center getting funding, 1.5 million, not that much money in the grand scheme of things. I don't think that suggests a massive nationwide role at the federal level.
I'd agree.
$2 million. Do we have
It could
the
just
US
be the
spending.gov
start,
here?
though. It's weird
Abbott
this is even
Molecular.
happening.
And I will also say, like, absolutely excellent work digging these things up to War Room.
I'd agree.
So we have this, that's Hologic, and then we have Abbott Molecular has received this Alinity M COVID testing, HIV
have
testing,
zero
HPV
NewsGuard,
testing
of course they
supplies.
do.
This is not outright just COVID. Here's what I mean to say, why I bring this up. Interesting what they're spending money on. But look, $3.5 million is a drop in the hat in terms of what they're going to need for a massive rollout. I do not see this as being indicative of any kind of major rollout occurring.
I'd agree with that.
All of these stories I've shown you
Like
are
for
opening
the
a
people who
potential
want
door.
it.
They are grains of sand.
Yep,
The question is, when do the grains of sand drop make a heap? The most important thing is to pay attention to what's happening right now, because it would seem COVID mandates are coming back. In many places, they're here. One small Hollywood studio, university is now enforcing heavily, or I should say not now enforcing, but it is heavily enforcing the vaccine mandate. Biden's going to push for more vaccines and all that stuff. It is all preliminary. It may not come back. We'll see. We've got 2 hospitals in upstate New York that have already brought back their mask mandates. There are concerns about new variants calls for testing, calls for vaccination. We saw the Forbes article. Right now, it's hard to say for sure because it has only just begun. But what did Hollywood Reporter say? Is it starting again? I think that's the appropriate question. Is it starting again? Pay attention to all the little things that are happening around you. While not one of them suggests a grand mass nationwide rollout, all of them could be the beginning.
Yep.
They cannot just come out and say, we hereby decree the mandates are back.
Yeah, 15
It has
days
to be done
slow the
slowly.
spread is back.
It'll start with, because of the variant, we're going to have employees mask up.
Yep.
Alex Jones has that viral video where he says a TSA whistleblower says they're coming back. So here's what may happen. In October, they're going to say, we got this new variant. So passengers, you have the choice, but we are going to have our employees begin masking up because they're here every day. Then you're going to get employees sick. They're going to say, oh no, TSA agents are getting sick. We have to slow down travel again.
Yep.
We don't have the need.
Everyone
We
has
can't
to have a
we don't
mask
have the
again.
ability. Pilots getting sick. Then they're going to say, to protect our employees because of the amount of travel and to maintain your ability to fly for the holidays, you got to wear a mask.
Yep.
And they're going to say, listen, for those of you that want to travel, the people who don't wear masks, they're going to get the employees sick. The pilots,
Even
the
though
flight
our friends
attendants,
already
the TSA agents, the gate agents. And then nobody will fly.
COVID?
Don't you want to go home for Christmas and Thanksgiving? Better wear your mask. And that's where it begins.
Everyone's vaxxed.
But again, man,
COVID.
we'll see. I
Most
think it's important
both.
to remain vigilant, paying attention to this. And I think we need to assert our rights and make sure this is all done legally and properly, which I think in many instances it was not done legally and properly.
Yeah.
But I can only tell you this. If Maine has these policies still in effect, they just stopped listening to it. You live in the cities, it's what you get. You live in the middle of nowhere, no one's going to notice. We'll see. Next segment's
We'll
coming up
see.
at 1 p.m. on this channel.
I don't know. I agree with most cities. But like I said, I live in Austin. I don't think anyone's going to care. I could definitely be wrong about that. I hope I'm not wrong. Because, yeah, this stuff is annoying. We didn't follow this stuff in Austin for the longest time. We go to the stores and stuff. And at first it was a thing, but it just quickly wore off. You know, after like the first, when the vaccines first came out, people just stopped caring. And I don't think people are going to put up with it again. It's been, if it was like 10 years ago, okay, probably. But it just happened. People aren't going to be cooped up in their houses. People aren't going to put masks on again. And who even really cares? Again, everyone has already had COVID. If you're not worried about getting it because you've already had it, and if you're vaccinated, yeah, it's just like, why would you even do masks and lockdowns? Because it's weird, right? They were saying that people had to wear masks and all this stuff at first because we didn't have any access to vaccinations the first year. But then as the people started getting vaccinated, they were like, okay, slowly lifting them. The spikes went down. They can't go back up, right? I don't know. Very interesting. But yeah, for me, I don't know. It's a toss up. I didn't think this could have happened last time. So, you know, I don't think people will put up with it again. But, you know, what did I know the last time, right? But let's move on to the next story. Biden reportedly selling off border wall materials. Isn't this great? It's all paid for. They have the materials there, but no. Let's just sell them off for pennies on the dollar. Here's a clip.
So over the weekend, SUNY Buffalo State and upstate New York reportedly evicting 4 dozen migrants. Why? Parents raised concerns about the safety of the students going back to school. Can you blame them? And as the chaos continues at our nation's border, the southern border, not the northern border is bad too, but southern obviously worse, President Biden now has been selling off parts of Trump's unfinished border wall that was contracted to be 400 miles long. This is an apparent bid to thwart new GOP legislation, which calls for the federal government to either use the material or give the states that will. That's
Just
New Mexico,
build it. It's
Texas,
already paid
or
for.
Arizona, or California. Now, keep in mind, this passed the Senate. It was a Republican-sponsored bill, but it passed with Democratic support. It just needed to be offered to the House and passed in the fall. Senator Tom Cotton joins us now. He sponsored the legislation. Senator, this is outrageous what's going on.
Brian, it really is outrageous. You can't make it up. The Biden administration inherited around $260 million worth of border construction materials from the Trump administration. They immediately put it in storage on day one when Joe Biden said he wasn't going to build the wall. They've now paid $300 million to store it for 2 years, more than the cost of the material themselves. But as soon as Senate Republicans, led by Senator Roger Wicker, who is the leader of Republicans on the Armed Services Committee, began poking around and asking questions about it earlier this year, the administration began to sell these materials for less than 2 cents on the dollar. The legislation that you mentioned is Senator Wicker's legislation, which I was pleased to join. It was added unanimously by Democrats on the Armed Services Committee to our annual defense bill. And now the administration is racing to try to sell off all of these materials because they would rather have taxpayers take a massive loss of hundreds of millions of dollars than give them to the governor of Texas, for instance, to build the border wall or to allow them to build a border in January of 2025.
So this is pure vengeance. No one thinks that a wall solves all the problems, but it blocks and it funnels to other areas which can be staffed. And they're not fully staffed. They're being overwhelmed. We pay for this, and they're wasting this. This GovPlanet line auction house has picked up the pace, as you mentioned. They have sold 81 slots already, 30 feet high, for $154 million of the $260 million bollard fence. So this is awful. Anybody buying this scrap steel, it's an unpatriotic move. If you care about our nation's borders, if you are a major corporation, don't show up for this auction.
Yeah, Brian, and apparently the administration is trying to silence the auction house as well. You know, this is a fairly typical operation for things like excess meals ready to eat or excess ponchos. That's why we have Army surplus stores around the country that sell these materials. It's a horse of a different color when you're talking about barrier material to try to protect our southern border. I mean, in the last 2 years, Joe Biden has allowed at least 250 people on the terrorist watch list to arrive at our southern border. That's not even counting the people who the Border Patrol didn't catch. So we have no idea how many terrorists have entered our country. At the same time, we're selling this material for pennies on the dollar. That's kind of Bidenomics in a nutshell, the total lack of common sense.
Yeah, total lack of common sense. And in terms of Roger Wicker, the senator says it shows they have no shame. I just wish there was something legal you can do to stop them from wasting taxpayer money and thwarting legislation that had been passed and repurposed for this purpose. Hopefully you'll find something, Senator, before it's too late. Thanks so much for joining us.
Too late. I mean, define too late. How many people have come across the border the last 2 years is insane. And they just want to push this. Obama pushed for a border wall. Everyone pushed for a border wall until Trump said it. And now it's just the opposite now. And they're just going so hard not to build it. They already have the materials. It's already paid for. But still, no. We're not going to build it. We're just going to let as many people come in as possible. I thought it was funny. Laura Loomer, she told a story on Tim Guest IRL recently about how she went to, she got some illegal immigrants to come with her and camp out on Nancy Pelosi's lawn and Gavin Newsom's lawn. And they didn't like it. They called the cops, and of course they did, because you don't want people on your property. And she has a wall. They have walls surrounding their properties. But no, not for the border. It's so weird. It's all just political. I think all this is just slowly backfiring on the Democrats because no one actually wants it. Like I was saying earlier, like my friend, he left he's not on the left anymore, and he said they abandoned him because he's like, well, I mean, common sense. We have the wall. Terrorists are coming in. It's already paid for and everything. Why wouldn't we build it? It's already contracted. Why would you not do that? But yeah, they don't want to. They just wanted to get people to keep coming in. And I hear the argument that they want to maybe give them asylum eventually, or like citizenship eventually, so they can vote for the left and all this stuff. But will they even? A lot of people that are coming in here probably wouldn't even vote for the left. A lot of the people just want, they don't want free stuff. They want the opportunity. Right? It's weird that they kind of cheat to get here ahead of other people that come here legally. but a lot of people probably wouldn't even vote for the left. But they think they will. They think they will. And what happens when it's criminals coming in because they're breaking the law to come in illegally? So a lot of these people wouldn't care about other laws. Stands to reason that's the case, right? But and then who's going to want to vote for them? Your streets are unsafe. Like, look at what's happening in Chicago. The black community in Chicago is just freaking out because the illegal immigrants, they're camping on their streets. They're taking housing opportunities from their community, and the same thing with New York. So you have all these people that are like staunch leftists. I mean, in Chicago, that's just been a leftist stronghold for decades and decades and decades. So once they start going against you, you gotta realize, there's a problem. But they're just elitists like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. These elitists on the left, I don't even think they realize like their normal voters are starting to turn on them because the illegal immigrants are just getting so out of control. And people are like, oh, you don't want to help people and whatever. What was it? New York's paying hundreds of millions of dollars a month, I believe. Sorry, don't quote me on that, but it's just they've spent like billions of dollars over the last years. Billions of dollars, billions. And they can't even fix like their subways. The one road I was watching about recently, one of their like freeways that are going through there, they're barely patching that thing up together, and they're worried that because trucks drive on it that it's gonna like fall apart. So New York can't even afford that, but they're paying for all of these illegal immigrants who need help. Where if they probably would have just been better off in their own countries. They're just sleeping on the streets. They can't get food. They don't have housing, right? And then people in New York have to pay for it, which is crazy because, again, the city is crumbling. How is the city crumbling? But then they have money to pay for illegal immigrants, but they don't have any money for the roads or anything like that. It's crazy because it's really because it's the citizens there are the ones paying for the taxes. Then they take their taxes and instead of spending it back on them, they're like, okay, we're going to spend it on people that a lot of New Yorkers and people in Chicago, they don't even want to be there, period. They don't even want to be there, but you're taking my tax dollars and spending it on people that haven't paid a dime into the system, but that's where all of our money's going. And then the infrastructure is falling apart, so the illegal immigrants can't even use it. It's just such a mess. Where if the wall was built in the political language from everyone was, hey, don't come here, it's dangerous, you could get hurt. And then like all of these kids that get trafficked and everything because of it, and they're just sold into slavery, indentured servitude and all this stuff. It's like, just build the wall, let people come in legally, and it would just solve so many problems. And then our infrastructure could get money put back into it. It's just seems like it's a win-win-win, but that is just my opinion. But it seems like more and more people are starting to share this opinion all the time. Let's move on to the next story. Hunter Biden's lawyers vowed to put Joe Biden on the stand if the DOJ charged Hunter. Very funny, isn't it? Let's roll the clip.
Finally, Hunter Biden's legal team reportedly vowed to put President Biden on the stand if the Justice Department charged Hunter with a crime in his federal tax case. I read that as a threat that, hey, if Joe Biden goes on the stand and ultimately is forced to leave office because of something he says on the stand, then you folks at DOJ, upper echelons there, could lose your job. 20 seconds to you, Kaylee.
It is a threat, and we're already seeing this threat play out. I mean, the sweetheart plea deal falls apart, and all of a sudden, all of this new evidence reported by the New York Times is leaked. That's not coming from the White House. It's coming from Hunter's lawyers in an effort to embarrass the Justice Department for caving on this sweetheart plea deal. The message is very clear. If Hunter is going down, Joe Biden is going down too, and that's the threat that his lawyers are now sending.
Kaylee McGee-White, great insight as always here on a Monday morning. We appreciate it.
Yeah, what an interesting story. Talk about ballsy. Those lawyers are nuts. They're like, oh, no. You would think Joe would have not been happy about this at all, but he might just be so lost in the clouds, he might not even really understand, Or to be fair, if Hunter's charged, it might have stuff come against him. So maybe he was part of the strategy. It's very interesting. But yeah, that's nuts. It's just like, hey, if you made us, you made Joe Biden leave office just because you didn't charge Hunter. So that's just what they're going to do, I guess. Very interesting. But a continuation for the next story, DOJ was told it would be career suicide to pull the trigger on Hunter Biden charges. Here's a clip.
Can't go on. A sitting president, meanwhile, taking the stand against his own Justice Department. That was the potential scenario revealed in a newly uncovered letter by Politico, detailing these negotiations behind Hunter Biden's now dead plea deal. Andy McCarthy, former assistant U.S. attorney and Fox News contributor. Andy, good morning to you. Betsy Swan had the scoop over the weekend in Politico. If you printed out that article, you're 15 pages deep. And you can't just crank out a story like that overnight. This had to take some time. What do you read into it? What was going on? What was the result?
Well, I hope what they take from it on Capitol Hill, Bill, is the way that this kind of intertwines with the scheme that they're looking at. You know, it's all very interesting about what happened with Hunter Biden, why they didn't prosecute him, what they'll do now that the deal collapsed. That stuff is all interesting. But, you know, in the big scheme, the Biden family influence peddling business, people are hand-wringing about where's the quid pro quo? Was he in business? Did they discuss business? And in the meantime, in the Hunter Biden case, here you have Exhibit A of how the scheme worked. You have these big, bad Justice Department prosecutors who aren't supposed to be afraid of anything. They got this guy dead to rights on a 10-year gun felony and tax evasion charges, and they're afraid to charge him. They won't charge him. The case is disappearing. The statute of limitations is running, but they're scared to death to charge him because they don't want to charge Joe Biden's son. They're afraid to do it. They're being told it would be career.
And it's funny that the left does do that. They're like, hey, the Trump's family's all bad, and then he's using his power as president to do all this stuff. Yeah, right. They impeached him twice, and now he's running for election again. So look at all these nonsense charges that they're bringing against him.
Suicide to pull the trigger on a case like that. This is exactly what access to Joe Biden is. This is why people were willing to pay millions of dollars to get it. That's what the scheme was.
Yep.
In our most recent poll for Fox News is culprit number 2. When it comes to his foreign business dealings, Hunter Biden did something illegal. Well, in February, that number was 37%. In April, it was 44%. Today, it is 50%. And I have to imagine that the collapse of the plea deal was maybe something. But what about this idea that Hunter Biden's lawyers floated maybe the threat or the idea that they would call the president of the United States to the stand? How do you think that went over with the president's lawyers?
Well, I think we know how it went over, Dana, because he was never charged. I mean, I know I'm like a broken record on this now, but every week we talk about this, and every week I say, another week has gone by and there's no indictment. And the charges are disappearing. 2016's gone, 2015's gone, 2014's gone. Really, most crimes prior to 2018 are gone because they never indicted. All the tax charges prior to 2017 are gone. And this scheme only runs till about 2019 because they had to rein their sails in once Biden's 2020 presidential campaign got into full swing. So the case is disappearing day by day. But what we see in the stories that were reported over the weekend is they're intimidated by Joe Biden. They're afraid to charge a case they would charge in any other instance because of what the blowback is going to be against them career-wise, professional-wise, et cetera, if they mess with Joe Biden's son. And again, this is what these foreign actors were paying for.
Yeah. Shaking my head, Andy. That's what I'm doing. I'm SMH over here today.
I know.
By the way, do you think David Weiss testifies in October or September? Or is that just not even going to happen at all now?
No, that's not.
Yeah, I think he'll say now that he's a special counsel.
He can.
Now it's very different. It's an ongoing investigation.
I know. Nice to
it's
see
an ongoing investigation into charges that no longer exist because the statute is run.
For infinity. Right. Thank you, Andy. Nice to see you. Andy McCarthy. There he
is.
Very, very just crazy. Yeah, so this is just... Yeah, more of the same with the Hunter Biden stuff. The more we learn, the more interesting it gets, right? It's like the DOJ is just told, no, don't do it. If you do it, that's career suicide. And then this is just after it came out that David Weiss, the new special counsel, he worked with Beau Biden, Hunter's brother, 10 years ago on a case. And and now he's the one investigating him. And the two senators, I believe, from Delaware, Joe Biden's home state, they're the one who approved this. So it's like, yeah, it's just crazy. It's very, very, very clear corruption. It's crazy people on the left just like bury their head in the sand for stuff like this. And again, the stuff with Trump that's happened with Trump, they're all like, oh no, get Trump. He's going to jail. Yay. Let's have a party. They don't care about the charges. They're trash charges. They don't care. They don't care at all. And then all this stuff that Joe Biden has done, they just want to ignore all of it. They just project. They say that quid pro quo that Trump supposedly had with Zelensky from Ukraine. And then Joe Biden's on stage at CFR admitting he did it. Yeah, and then they just want to say it's backwards. Oh, the Trump, look at Donald Trump Jr., he's corrupt and all this stuff, and they're with Russia and all this stuff. And then we find out the Bidens, no, that's them. And they work with China, they work with Russia, they work with Ukraine, they work with a lot of people, and got paid a lot of money. There's a report that I did last month before I went on hiatus about how Hunter Biden is just blackmailed the what was his name? I can't remember his name. The guy from Ukraine, the Burisma guy. It seems like he came out and he was saying that they blackmailed me into working with him. He's like, I didn't even want to work with him. He hates Hunter Biden. He was saying that his dog is smarter than Hunter. He was just the whistleblower. Apparently, there's recordings of this. He was just going in and he hated Hunter. He said he was an idiot. He's dumb. My dog is smarter. That's crazy. So not only Hunter and Joe are taking this money from these people, it seems like some of them, they're actually coercing them into doing it. Like the reporting at the time was like, oh, maybe he had the dirt on him, right? And then he was just like, okay, if you don't work with us and give us the money and we'll work with you and get you off of this stuff, we're going to make it worse, So that could definitely be the case. And look at what they're doing with the DOJ. Look at how his lawyers are saying that they're going to put Joe Biden in the stand just to get leftists in general not to want to be doing any of this stuff. Don't charge Hunter, because if you do, Joe Biden's career is going to be over. And again, the left doesn't care. They're like, no, don't charge Hunter because it's all nonsense. And I don't even know what the left says about Hunter, to be honest. Like, straight up. I think they just say it's made up and it's false and none of it's true. But come on. We know it's all true. And they're just not going after him because of special favors, because it's the Biden family. Just straight up corruption. And again, I just think it's really funny because of how much they hate Trump and the crimes that they say he did, when it's all just nonsense. But they want to go after Trump so bad. But then Hunter Biden, no. He gets a pass on everything. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Beating Trump's 2024 lead will be a tough hill to climb, says Iowa pollster. Let's check out a clip.
Let's bring in Ann and Mark now to talk more about this poll. Ann, I want to start with you and something that you said about this poll. You said, quote, I've been doing this for a long time. We've had candidates who started low and ended up winning. Anybody can come to Iowa and win. Anybody. And you are no doubt our Iowa expert. Trump has a big lead here. Has there ever been a candidate who's made up this amount of ground based on the lead that Trump has here? I mean, what's your read on the state of the field right now?
Well, my read is it's certainly a tough hill for another candidate to climb, but so many things can happen that shape the trajectory of the race that it's hard to sit here in August and say, this is the way things are going to go. We had George W. Bush back in 2000 who held a consistent lead all the way through, but it's more common that candidates go up and down and up and down. Now, we're in an unusual situation, and I would couch President Trump's lead as dominating right now. But there are other little tea leaves in this poll that says there's opportunity for other candidates to make a better showing even in our next poll.
All right, Mark, let's talk about that because you've pointed out some of these openings for these Trump rivals if the GOP race ends up changing. And the things that traditionally change races, like criminal charges, for instance, they really haven't had any kind of an impact. So what would it take for one of these candidates to take advantage of what does appear to be a little bit of a soft spot in some of these numbers for Trump?
Yeah, the indictments have actually ended up making former President Donald Trump stronger, not weaker. Overall, the poll has 65% of likely Republican caucus goers saying that no, we don't believe that these charges, these investigations, these are serious amounts of serious crimes, versus just 26% who say that no, they are serious. And I think notably, the poll ended up showing that Donald Trump's lead got stronger in the days after the indictment, rather than
like the media, like this guy. They don't even think that he did. It doesn't even seem like they think he's going to get convicted of anything. They don't even think that. I mean, like, serious. I don't know what they would respond to that question. But every time that these indictments happen, people in the media are like, "This is dumb. They're not gonna go anywhere. It's just gonna help him in the polls." And that's a media who hates him.
And before, the poll was conducted right in the middle of what was going on in Fulton County, Georgia. But importantly, you mentioned there's going to be another Iowa poll. And this right now is kind of the baseline we're going to see over the next 5 months. And we'll be able to track to see, has that actually changed? Do Republican caucus goers start to believe, you know what, after I've heard more about what's actually gone on, maybe things actually change, and we'll be able to find out from this polling all the way up to the caucuses that start on January 15th.
And do you think that
Again,
one question...
like I was saying earlier in my other, earlier in the podcast and other clip, does anyone even know that his lawyers are getting charged just because they gave him legal advice? 18 of his lawyers? Like, this is nonsense. You go look more into this stuff. It's like, whoa, this is just un-American. Like, straight up, not even trying to be cliche or anything. It's just un-American. Attorney-client privilege has been a thing since the foundation of the country, and now they're just getting rid of it. Hey, if you're a lawyer and give your client advice, you can get in trouble. How crazy is that when they think they're in the right? They think he was legally able to do this, but no. You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Really kind of tells us the story of this primary so far in a nutshell?
Yeah, right. I think that overall the primary has been about Donald Trump and whether it is the investigations, the indictments against him, whether it's the voters that Vaughn and Kristen end up speaking to, dealing with do you want Donald Trump still to be your leader or not? I think that is right now the most important question going on in this Republican race.
So to that point, Ann, 66% of Trump supporters say that they've made up their mind, and that adds up to about 20% of the vote. That wouldn't have been enough to win in 2016. So unless something radically changes, is that Trump's floor in Iowa? Is this where he has to build from?
Well, I don't like to talk about floors or ceilings because what you have to keep in mind is the constituency that makes up likely Republican caucus goers. This is an evolving, changing, morphing pool of Iowans who are out there, and from cycle to cycle, it can dramatically change in terms of just the raw numbers and their makeup. So the opportunity for these candidates who are not Donald Trump is to build new caucus goers out of people who maybe haven't caucused before and maybe they're not completely tuned in. And so
there's no way that any of the candidates right now, maybe Vivek Ramaswamy, he's like a younger guy, maybe he could get him. But come on, like, you're going to get enough people to be, Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis, they're not going to get anyone that hasn't caucused before. Let's be honest. You need like a really energetic, young, vibrant person. And even still, like, a lot of people caucus in Iowa already. So I don't know. That's just a tough hill to climb. If it wasn't against Trump, maybe. But again, you're not going to, I don't think they're going to get new people. But, I guess we'll see. But I just don't see it.
Outnumber that core that is very staunchly for President Trump and unlikely to move.
In terms of his stranglehold on the party, Mark, our poll, the numbers we just revealed this hour say that 41% of Republican caucus goers want him to remain the head of their party. That is pretty well in line with his favorability numbers. That's probably not a coincidence.
Yeah, not only his favorability number, but also his ballot position. It's 41% say, hey, we want Donald Trump, the leader of the party. 42% of likely caucus goers say we believe Donald Trump is our first choice. And Ryan, you know, we were just talking about like what is Donald Trump the question? I think this gets at really the zeitgeist of the Republican electorate right now. And interestingly enough, among those 41% who say, hey, I want Donald Trump to be the leader, overwhelmingly Donald Trump is their first choice. But then on that second question, the kind of middle ground, Donald Trump was a good president, but maybe it's time to consider other options. Ron DeSantis comes out on top when you look at the Republican horse race that way, but number 2 is Donald Trump. And so it's almost going to end up being that if you do want to start picking off the half or more Republicans who want to even consider a new leader, one of those candidates has to consolidate all of that vote to be able to beat Donald Trump.
So, and we've seen some of these Trump rivals attempt to try and find an opening by reaching out to evangelical voters. Tim Scott in particular, we know that Ron DeSantis has done that as well. That is a key in Iowa, right? It was probably part of Trump's downfall in 2016. He's now their favored candidate among that group. What do you think has changed?
Well, what do I think has changed? I think, I'm sorry, who did you say was the favorite among evangelicals?
Donald Trump, 74%.
Donald Trump,
yeah.
DeSantis is close, though,
which he led with in 2016 as well. What I think is interesting about evangelicals is that Mike Pence, I think he thought his play was Iowa and the evangelical sector that makes up the likely caucus goers, and he is no better among evangelicals than his overall number. So he has no traction, no special traction with that group. In 2016, they were the majority of people who showed up on caucus night. According to entrance polls, 64% were evangelical.
So that is
they're a powerhouse demographic.
Right, and an area that Donald Trump has made a lot of inroads in. So, Mark, we've run this graphic about 1 million times. The winner of the contested Iowa caucus has not won the Republican nomination since 2000. Ann talked about George W. Bush's win back then. The GOP looks a lot more like the Republican Party than it has in years past. Could this be the year where they break that trend?
Yeah, and again, I think 2000 is the one here. We haven't really seen a Republican candidate have a lead of this magnitude since George W. Bush was running in 2000, and ended up leading consistently in the Iowa poll, ended up winning the Iowa caucus in 2000. But you're exactly right. Ever since then, really the person who's ended up winning Iowa on the Republican side hasn't necessarily gone on to win the nomination. But I think the reason we're talking about Iowa, that Ann is polling about Iowa, is that this is really, I think, the make or break contest. If you want to be able to defeat Donald Trump for the Republican nomination, it has to start in Iowa. You can't come in second or third to him in Iowa, come in second or third to him in New Hampshire, and still have a really good slingshot to the nomination. So I think it really has to start in the Hawkeye state if you want to pull off the upset.
Even if Trump wouldn't have got indicted, they had such a uphill battle to try to beat him. But now the indictments, they should drop out 100%. The only person that I kind of get why he's in the race is Vivek Ramaswamy. No one knows who he is. His polls have skyrocketed. He's getting into all these podcasts. I think he's making a run for vice president. But if I was him, I'd drop out as soon as possible. Right after Iowa, drop out, endorse Trump, get name recognition. But that's the only person that makes sense. Ron can't win. Ron DeSantis, he's floundered so bad, like Mike Pence. All these other people, it's just it's a joke. And if you look on Predicted, Ramaswamy's passed Ron DeSantis. So it's just like, yeah, what's even the point? Again, just from name recognition for Ramaswamy to get on podcasts and stuff, and then he has a good shot of winning in 2028. Ron DeSantis blew his opportunity of 2028, if you ask me. I don't think he should have won against Trump. Now, no, a lot of people don't like him. Trump voters don't like him anymore. When they liked him before, I don't even know if he can win in Florida again, let alone win the presidency in 2028. So I think he shot himself in the foot for this whole thing. And everyone else is just trying to get book deals, right? So they're not going to beat Trump. The only way that Trump could lose is if they indicted him and tried to force him off the ballot. But from what I understand, people can write him in, and then also if they don't get to the electoral number, then it goes to their House of Representatives, and then they're just gonna elect Trump. So, yeah, I don't even know. I mean, that's for the presidential, the primary. Trump's just gonna win. I mean, let's be honest. But that's just my opinion. Let's move on to the next story. This one was really very, very interesting. The Dodgers stadium flooded while Christians claim divine wrath over drag nuns. Let's play a clip.
I do not consider myself to be Christian. I do believe in God. But the images coming out of Los Angeles sure are making people think about life. The flooded Dodger Stadium. But let's slow down. Right now, Tropical Storm Hillary is making landfall. It has made landfall. And now we're seeing major flooding, water levels rising. People are getting out of their cars. Their cars are being washed away. The LA River is massively flooded, and people don't quite understand. When you look at videos, right now I'm seeing people say like, what's the big deal? It's just water going down a canal or whatever. It's like, dude, look, let me show you real photos of the typical quote unquote LA River, which is so small you could just hop over it.
LA
compared to now, which is raging waters. But what's happening right now, which is sparking internet theories and making the religious say God will not be mocked, is the flooded Dodger Stadium. Just a few months ago, the Dodgers hosted the drag nuns, which many people said was a mockery of God, was insulting. It was discriminatory. And as I said, I'm not a Christian person, but I'll tell you this. Having drag nuns, I believe, outright violates the 1964 Civil Rights Act by insulting and spitting in the faces of people based on their religious beliefs. And they dance around and say, no, that's not what we're doing. But it's quite literally what they're doing.
That's what they're doing.
So we've got some major updates as it pertains to what's happening in Los Angeles with not only this flood, but yes, my friends, a 5.1 earthquake hitting the area the other day. Crazy. And you know what you're going to get? Many secular individuals and leftists are going to say storms happen. It's climate change, in fact, and that proves it. Except for the earthquake, which, you know, they'll try and claim is climate change somehow. They'll argue that the heating of the planet actually causes an expansion of tectonic plates, which then vibrate more. And then, yeah, you get my point. They'll always come up with some reason, but sure, fine, whatever, maybe. The point is this. People can't help but look away from what just happened. And it brings up memories of another story. Y'all remember when the George Floyd mural on this brick wall exploded?
Yeah,
that's right.
Nuts.
Witnesses say lightning struck the wall exactly where George Floyd's picture was. Only that section of wall was blasted off the building. And then many people started tweeting, you know, like, God will not be mocked. No false idols, etc., etc.
That's insane.
I gotta say, you know, I don't know a whole lot about... I'm just going to say coincidences happen. And if you're looking for symbols and if you're looking for miracles, you may see a story like this and connect the two. It's been 2 months. You know, I think it was a couple months after George Floyd. We'll take a look at the dates. But I'm not one to immediately just say this is God's wrath. That's not really my position. But you will be hard-pressed to convince anyone who is religious this is anything but. I got to say, the George Floyd thing sends chills down your spine.
Yes.
Look, a storm hits, and it's like a once-in-a-lifetime storm because California never gets hit by hurricanes. And you've got people saying, gee golly. It is kind of crazy, don't you think? Like, when was the last time you heard about Los Angeles being hit by a hurricane? I don't know, man. It's just... If someone came to me and said that they believe this is God's wrath, I'm going to be like, well, look, coincidences can happen. I'm fairly agnostic. I do believe in God. I don't believe in like scripture and stuff like that, like prophecy, regardless of the religion. But I just got to tell you, you know, a month and a half or 2 months after they do this drag nun thing, a city that never gets hit by hurricanes gets hit by an earthquake and a hurricane. And I'm kind of just like, ooh. Here's the story, and then we'll talk about some videos. I hope everybody's okay. And then, of course, the political response from Joe Biden, everyone's getting quite upset about. But check this out. Hurricane Hillary has made its way to Los Angeles. This is from AS.com. And images of the Dodgers Stadium surrounded by water has fans in a panic. Does it really? If you've seen this image of Dodger Stadium surrounded by floods of water and are debating its veracity or not alone after this helicopter footage came out, the stadium does indeed appear to be surrounded by quite a bit of water. In both video and the photo, you can see the inside of the stadium itself seems to be unaffected. Some social media users even suggested the flooding is just water on asphalt. I do think there are some areas where you can tell it is just wet asphalt, but you can see the trees submerged, man. I'm not saying it is a massive amount of water or anything like that. But, many people are saying it's not that bad. It's not that bad. The stadium seems to be okay. The parking lot is another story. And LA continues to be under a flash flood warning. And we got tons of videos of flooding.
Not that bad.
So here's
recently, my apologies. I don't know if you could see that, by the way, like that switching like that. It's weird. I don't know what's going on with that. It works fine there. I think I just need to restart my software, but I'm streaming and recording, so it's pretty difficult to do. But yeah, what I was gonna say is, if you compare it to the flooding we've seen in the last few months of in New York, the Northeast, this probably isn't too bad, but it still looks pretty bad.
A zoomed in image. I'm sorry, it really does look like outside either the stadium is dug into the ground or it looks like there's water. You can see some areas appear to be flooded. Here you can see down at the bottom what looks like what appears to be wet asphalt. And then you can see it looks like there is some degree of water in the surrounding area. But I don't know. Maybe it's not massive flooding and maybe it's people just exaggerating. I think it's fair to point that out. Yeah. We had this tweet, baseball history tweeting wild scene at Dodger Stadium today. And, some people are saying it's just wet asphalt. But
I don't know
when you take a look at some of the
is.
videos, let me see if I can pull up some of the...
He gets to the river in a minute. But if you look at how flooded the LA River is, though, it's kind of reasonable to think that, look at this car right here. It's reasonable to think that the parking lot's probably also quite flooded.
Videos of flooding. Yeah, a lot of people are like, yo, there is some pretty intense flooding. To be fair, though, maybe it's just a bit of wet ground. I do think we have the actual. No, that's the George Floyd exploded. Do we not have the video? Oh, the video's right here. Okay, no, it looks like they're zooming on an image. There is helicopter footage of that. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'm sorry. That looks like flooding. Maybe.
That looks like flooding
that looks like flooding.
That
definitely looks like flooding, and everyone assumes that it is. I'm trying to be careful here. I'm trying to be fair and make sure we, we don't go overboard.
Yeah, that's true.
But I will point out
not flooded,
this story here from June 17th. Yes. Dodgers honor anti-Catholic drag nuns more than an hour before first pitch inside nearly empty stadium. Oh, that's weird. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence received a Community Hero Award.
Yeah.
And there was an earthquake, too. Did you hear that news? A 5.1 earthquake in Ventura County was felt across parts of California. The Daily Mail reports desperate Californians climbed trees to escape floods and mudslides, with many trapped in cars for hours after Hillary brings record rain. Palm Springs is submerged, and 25 million are now under flood warnings. Shock video shows earthquake rock at bar. That's crazy. Look at this flooding. This is nuts. Look, this place has been in a drought, and people even right now are mocking what's going on. But we'll go through this. Look at this. Wow. The roads are flooded. I think this is probably what you're seeing at the Dodgers Stadium. You see how it looks to be about 6 inches of water? It's flooding, but it's not like you will drown in it. Well, people need to understand, however, I'll tell you this. The biggest mistake people make is that they assume flooding is not dangerous. It's just water, right? All right, let me break it down for you. 2 things. Currents. You step in water that is moving and you think it's fine, and then you get flipped over really, really fast. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make. They see running water in like a creek or a stream or a flood, and they're like, oh, it's not that deep. I can walk in it. And then they step 1 foot. The water pushes their foot. They slip. They can't grip it. And they flip over, land on their back, and get washed away. Now, if you are young and strapping and strong, you can probably get out of this. But some people, then you can't grab anything. More importantly, debris. You walk around in floodwaters and you get cracked in the leg by like a large piece of wood or a jagged piece of metal or something like that. This is why floods are dangerous, not because a bit of water is scary. So they're saying the National Weather Service continued to warn of life-threatening flooding from heavy rain in western LA County and eastern Ventura County last night. The warnings have extended into today, with the service saying areas that normally do not experience flash flooding will flood. Lives and property are in great danger through Monday. California Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency last night for much of Southern California, with flash flood warnings until at least 3 a.m. today in an area more accustomed to drought. That's amazing. Now, this is the story that I wanted to pull up because this is what people are starting to reference, saying God will not be mocked when you look at the flooded Dodgers Stadium. I just want to stress, an area prone to drought was just hit by a hurricane. Okay, tropical storm, but it was a category, I think it was a category 4. And then as it approached Baja California, it was downgraded to a tropical storm. And now Los Angeles is flooding. I want to show you this because this is a classic story that everybody remembers. George Floyd mural in North Toledo reduced to rubble after being struck by lightning. Mayor and artists say it will be replaced. The piece was created by Toledo artist David Ross. The building was said to be stable and secure.
If it blows up again, that would be outrageous.
Prior to the lightning strike, however, the facade was not. Can I just show you this image right there? Take a look at that. Only the portion that had George Floyd was blown out. To be fair, it's a large portion that was blown. Look at all this is crazy to me. This story blew my mind when it happened. I think we have some photos here. Take a look at this. There's other parts of the mural on the sides that are fine. They're fine. Look at this. Here's the original image. You can see it right there in the middle.
This is just
what is this?
weird.
Change of mind. And then you've got George Floyd with a crown. And what happened? Pockets of clouds rolled overhead. No big storms or anything, but there were storm clouds. Lightning struck the building, blowing out just George Floyd. And you get a whole bunch of people going like,
weird.
False
Very,
idols
very,
much?
Very weird.
It's crazy. It's crazy to see. Now, I must confess, my friends, while many may look at this and say it is proof of God's judgment and his wrath, I don't. It's not for me to go there. I'll point it out and I'll say, I don't ignore stuff like this. But I do want to stress there were probably many buildings throughout the country that have been struck by lightning and had their facades blown out. There are probably many areas that suffered earthquakes. We don't really think about them. We don't claim that God is passing judgment on, a small town in the Pacific Rim because an earthquake hit. We don't think about it. It doesn't end up in the news and no one talks about it. This was significant because George Floyd with a crown was blown off the wall and nothing else happened. Just the facade, just a single layer of bricks collapsed. And there were witnesses saying it was a lightning strike, watching it blow out of the wall. Okay. But unless you track every lightning strike and every facade and every damaged building, and then we talk about that and do the actual breakdown, there's not much I can say about this other than people probably want it to be the wrath of God, to have some significance.
Yeah.
So what can I really say about the Dodgers Stadium? For one, I personally, as a non-Christian, am deeply, deeply offended by what they did with these drag nuns.
Yeah, same.
The reason I'm offended is because these people are liars and they're hypocrites, and I'm sick of the double standard as they all stand here and laugh at these men who are mocking Catholics.
Yeah.
How dare you come out and tell me that I can't have an opinion, that I'm not allowed to speak, and then you openly spit in the face of a religious group that is protected under the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That is absolutely ridiculous and offensive, and it makes me despise and hate these people. They are such evil
really
and despicable people.
They really
You want
are,
to come
though.
out and claim that as a religious person, you have a right to assert over someone else's life and things like that. Make your argument. Fine. You want to come out as one of these drag nuns and be party to a group that argues no one else is allowed to speak but you are, and then you defy your own logic and rulemaking? No. Sorry, I don't play that. So at the very least, I can say this. When the surrounding area around the stadium is flooded, and it appears to be, well, you reap what you sow, I guess.
Yep.
I'm not saying that God did this. I am simply saying I have no sympathy for you people, these hypocritical Marxists. That's what I mean by you people. Marxists and communists, far left extremists, hypocrites and authoritarians. I absolutely reject and despise the hypocrisy of these evil people. How dare you? LGBTQ Pride Night. You can celebrate pride without spitting in the face of a religious group of people.
Exactly.
And the fact that LA did this, I think they're being sued, and they should be sued by every single California Christian group. Now, I was just in Portland, Maine this past weekend. It was fun. And I saw a church, and it had pride flags. It had progress pride flags, and it said trans rights are human rights on the door. And I'm like, I don't expect those churches to actually file lawsuits in this regard, but I don't consider them to be real churches. I don't think any group of people that allows themselves to be mocked actually believes what they're saying. So when these groups come out and insult and mock, let's talk about the devastation and destruction that's currently going on, and then we'll get a little political with Biden's response. Take a look at this video. This is a Tess T. S. Eccles Brown, PhD, said, why are there so many cars floating down the LA River Basin? It's an interesting question, and the video is kind of crazy. Take a look at this. Yeah, the flooding is pretty bad in LA when the river basin, which is normally walkable, and you remain dry, you're not even walking in water, has cars floating there. Take a look at this one. Wall Street Apes tweets, the media says the deadly Hurricane Hillary is wreaking havoc all across San Diego County, Southern California. The LA River is out of control. Meanwhile, California residents continue to post their own videos when they hype up deadly hurricane on the news.
This piece of shit. What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Nothing.
There's no rain.
It's just light drizzle. Light
That's
drizzle.
how
Oh,
LA
don't
works,
make the mistake,
though,
my
right?
friends. You see, this is a really
Oh,
great
it's
video
so
to exemplify how little
dynamic.
Southern Californians experience dangerous weather. I remember my first hurricane. It was Hurricane Irene in Virginia. And we were getting all these reports saying, stay indoors. It's going to be really dangerous. The hurricane is coming. Having grown up in Chicago, oh boy, I've seen some storms. I remember we had a tree in our front yard at one of my apartments.
So
like the apartment in Chicago, it's like a house with the top floor.
Gnarly.
And then during the storm, it's
actually, when I was like 3 years old, I was like I was at my grandparents' cabin. Pretty old, but not super old. Maybe it's built in like the 1920s. And yeah, there was a tornado like less than 100 yards away. We went up the next day, and all these trees were all just thrown around. It was insane.
In the afternoon, and the sky turns green, and it looks like it's nighttime out. You hear rumbling and explosions in the sky. And then all of a sudden we hear a whoomp onto the building. The wind hit so hard, the tree, which is in the front yard, smacked the building, and we thought it was going to rip out of the ground. We were like, whoa, because the tree actually was decently far away from the building, but the wind hit so hard, it hit the building.
Wow.
That was kind of scary. I had another apartment where the wind blew out my window. So we have one of those windows that can fold down, like you've probably seen them. And something happened. I don't know. The window got knocked out, out without breaking. And then rain was coming in horizontally into my apartment, and I'm getting blasted, and I have to run up and slam the window shut. Like, what? I think someone must have left it unhatched or whatever. It just blew over. Like, not like it got knocked out of the frame or anything. But I've seen some storms, man. I remember growing up, it's like in the afternoon, it's sunny, and then all of a sudden the sky turns dark green. So when I heard a hurricane was coming, I was like, oh, man, this is going to be crazy, because thunderstorms in Chicago are crazy
That's
enough.
happened with me and Harvey.
And then what happens?
In Texas.
It lightly rains, and there's wind. And then there's a bunch of bits of tree and leaves and twigs in the ground. And I was like, that's it. But people don't get
exactly what
the
happened
wind
with
creates a
Harvey.
surge and floods everything around the coast.
To be fair, though, I'm in Austin, so I'm kind of far from the coast. But I was like, oh, there's a hurricane coming, man. This is going to be nuts. And it's like, well, it's just rain.
That's the serious nature of it. So when I was up in Hurricane Sandy in New York, I understood this. I was in Lower Manhattan in the financial district, and I went down to, I was by the New York Stock Exchange. News was reporting the stock exchange was flooded. So I walked out and looked, and I was like, I'm standing here in front of the stock exchange. Ain't no flooding. However, just down the street, I watched as the water just started rising up. There's no rain. I'm perfectly dry. You can hear a whoa above the buildings. Really creepy, because the wind was being disrupted by the buildings, but above it was really fast and really loud.
Oh, that makes
the
a lot of
wind
sense.
is hitting the water and causing it to be pushed up. And then it starts flooding the area. So the flooding was really bad. It was several feet. So this is what these people don't understand. You're in an area that is not near the coast, not a floodplain. And you're like, this is just some rain. Yeah. And then you can take a look at what starts to happen. Take a look at this. Jock Blue says, for those not from California, the LA River is not a river. It's a man-made water system, and it's usually dry. Yes, famously, skateboarders will do kickflips over the river basin. And this is actually high. These photos, look at this photo. You can see that there's, it's mostly dry, and you can see there's water kind of trickling out the sides. This is actually really high for the LA River. There's a small, thin strip in the middle that normally has water in it, and that's it. You can lightly jog and just hop right over it. Skateboarders actually do tricks back and forth over it. That's how low it is. And then you get this.
Whoa.
Studio City, California. In my entire life, I've never seen the LA River this full. Yes, the basin is capturing a lot of the water, and that water is flowing like crazy. Let me show you a video of insane people doing insane things. Here are some joggers. This is the thing about California. These people have never experienced. So let's slow down. Let me go back to that photo of what it normally looks like. Here's a woman in front of two cars, and they're in, I think this is from a movie or something.
I think that's great.
It's about to be a race.
John
And you can see cars are driving here. You can see this photo of the water level actually decently high. But you could stand there just fine. Now let me show you this video. You've got these two guys running. Look at the white, the water. It is flowing rapidly. This is insane. I have never seen it like this. And these two guys come across water flowing into the river, and they stand there. Now, you got to look at this, because you see how fast the water is flowing? These guys are standing there like, okay, like, what do we do here? These guys clearly have never experienced running water in their lives, okay? Anybody who's ever been out in the middle of nowhere on a hike, you've come across a river, you know exactly what happens when you step into water that is low but running very quickly. As I mentioned earlier, let me just show you what they do. So here, they're just standing there. They clearly think about it for a second, and then the guy just runs through it. And then the other guy runs through it, and that's that. Good for them. I'm glad they survived, and they nearly just died. I know. There are ways to get through this without being washed into that water. But if you fall into that swollen LA River, you're probably going to die.
You're not.
You are being rushed along. There's debris. You're going to be slamming into things. You won't be able to control it. And you probably will just drown. When these guys come to this flowing water, never do this. Go up and over the water. I mean, first of all, don't go jogging along the path on the LA River. Crazy joggers in the rain next to swollen LA River and tropical storm. Hillary, definitely not recommended behavior.
Yeah.
That water is flowing so quickly, and look at the way they run through it. Oh, man. You know what, man? I just have very little sympathy for these people who live in these cities. Look how he jogs through it. They hop left and right on one foot. That is exactly how you get washed away. On one foot, if you lose traction, the water will push you over, you will fall, get swept in the river, and then it's goodbye. So I wouldn't recommend going through this at all, but certainly that's not the way you do it. And so here we are.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, these guys, in my opinion, I don't know the level of danger or whatever, but that's crazy that they...
Maybe
they're lucky they maintain.
I really wouldn't even be scared of really getting swept into the river. But if you do, you're not gonna be able to live. You're gonna drown. You can't swim through that. That's gnarly.
Action and didn't get washed in and killed. Crazy, man. I don't know though. You can call it wrath of God. I got no idea. They're saying the worst has yet to come. So right now, as we are talking about this and I'm showing you these videos, they're saying more is coming. In the meantime, Joe Biden's getting roasted for his response to what's going on in Maui, and I think this is really important. We're dealing with a major crisis in Los Angeles. We got a major crisis in Maui. Biden is being roasted for only giving these people $700 in Maui.
Stupid.
And so I just want to say this. Here's what you can expect. They will not provide proper funding to the damage for those who live in Los Angeles, nor for those who live in Maui.
But they'll steal your tax money and give it to illegal
Ukraine,
immigrants.
Blank check, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at...
Wow. Yeah, crazy story. It's really interesting. The George Floyd mural to me is just what? It just blows that part out. And it wasn't even part of a storm or anything. Just that one some clouds. Bam! Wow, it's so weird. Wrath of God and stuff, I don't know. It is weird there was an earthquake and stuff and right after the Nuns and everything. But I don't know. California's always doing crazy stuff. So you'd think they'd be getting Wrath of God it a lot, right? Yeah, but I don't know. Who knows? But I think I'll leave it there. Definitely appreciate you joining me for the first episode of the David Carson Show. Again, we'll be live here each and every day from 1 p.m. Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern. am. I would be doing the same thing, hanging out. Right now, I don't really have anyone in the chat. I'm such a new podcast, but the idea will be to do some stories, take about 20 minutes to chat, hang out, and get your input as well. Again, definitely appreciate it again. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.